Here's what you'd have to believe to be a theist. 100,000 years since we became separate from the Cro-Magnons and the Neanderthals as our own species, Homo sapiens. Here's what you have to believe to be a theist. For 100,000 years, humanity is born. Perhaps 25% of it dies in childbirth or very shortly afterwards. Infant mortality extraordinary after childbirth. Killed by microorganisms we didn't know existed, by earthquakes that we thought were portents, by storms that we didn't know came from our climate system, by other events that arise from being born onto a cooling planet with deep cracks in its crust, faults in its crust. Then man-made things, turf wars, fights over women, fights over territory, over food. Very, very slow, gradual, exponential upward progress, we might like to think. Pretty slow. And for the first 96,000 years of this experience, heaven watches with folded arms. Us go through this with indifference. And then around 4,000 years ago decides, gee, it's time to intervene. And the best way of doing that would probably be in Bronze Age Middle East, making appearances to stupefied, illiterate peasants, which could later be passed on. The news would get to China after about 1,000 years of that. That's what you have to believe. Aren't you glad you can't be made to believe that?
It's actually a little difficult for me to respond because everything he says is in contradiction to what we know about the physical universe that began about 13.8 billion years ago in something called a Big Bang. Our planet Earth is only about 3.5 billion years old. The first microorganisms, known as chemolithoautotrophic hyperthermophiles, evolved around 2.5 billion years ago. Human beings have been on this planet for only 200,000 years. We've had self-awareness, written language for about 5,000 years, oral language for about 15,000 years, when all these literatures evolved. So the Bible that he quotes as authority is totally in contradiction with everything that we know about cosmology, about evolution, about biology, about mathematics, about physics, and about everything that allows us to understand who we are.